Welcome to Lukebook Money and Wealth Building, explained for Singapore, not borrowed from somewhere else. In this episode, two 18-year-olds, standing at the very same fork in the road. One walks into university. The other walks straight into a job. 22 years later, which one is actually richer? We follow both roads, all the way to 40, to find the honest answer to a deeply Singaporean question: do you really need a degree to get rich? Today, we find out. Two 18-year-olds in Singapore, standing at the exact same fork in the road. One walks through the gates of a junior college, aiming for university. The other walks straight into a job. 22 years later, which one is actually richer? Picture them clearly. Same age, same HDB neighborhood, maybe even the same primary school. One clutching an A-level certificate and a university offer. The other clutching a toolbox and his very first payslip. Two roads, diverging from the exact same point. We are taught the answer from the moment we can hold a pencil. Study hard, get the grades, get the degree, get rich. In Singapore, that script isn't just advice. It's almost a religion. But is it actually true? Does that piece of paper really decide who builds wealth and who doesn't? Today we follow two real-feeling Singaporeans down both roads, and we find out for ourselves. Meet Kenny, who finished ITE and never set foot in a university. And meet Jonathan, the straight-A student who did absolutely everything right. By the end of this, you'll see that the honest answer is not the one your relatives shout across the reunion dinner table. And it has surprisingly little to do with the degree itself. First, let's be completely fair to the degree, because the paper chase isn't built on nothing. The data is clear. A fresh university graduate in Singapore earns a median of about $4,500 a month. A fresh polytechnic diploma holder starts closer to $3,000. The degree opens a real, measurable gap on day one. And it isn't only the salary. A degree opens doors, networks, and a kind of prestige that genuinely matters in many corporate careers. It is a real, valuable asset. We are not here to pretend otherwise. And there's the network. University throws you in with future managers, founders, and professionals, a web of useful contacts that can quietly open doors for decades. That is a genuine advantage, and it is not nothing. Though it's worth noting Kenny builds a network too, just a different one. Suppliers, contractors, property agents, repeat customers who recommend him to their friends. Less prestigious on paper, but every bit as valuable when you actually own the business. And the gap widens. Across a whole career, the median university graduate earns around $9,000 a month, far above the diploma holder. And for credential-gated careers, doctor, lawyer, engineer, the degree isn't an advantage. It's the entry ticket. So if this video were only about salary, it would be a very short one. On average, the degree wins on income. Full stop. No argument. But here is the twist this entire channel is built on. Salary is not wealth. What you earn and what you keep are two completely different games. And the second game is where Kenny quietly catches right up. Let's follow Kenny first. At 18, while his friends are cramming for A-levels, Kenny is already on a worksite, learning to install and service air conditioning. He earns little, but he earns it from day one. And he's learning a real, paid skill the market will always need. He's not glamorous. No graduation photos, no convocation gown, no proud caption to post. Just a teenager with a payslip, a full 5 years before his JC friends will ever see one. Kenny lives at home, spends almost nothing, and saves like it's a competitive sport. By the age most graduates are only just starting work, he has already crossed the single hardest milestone in personal finance. His first $100,000. Then he does the one thing that changes everything. At 28, he stops being an employee. He starts his own aircon servicing and renovation business. He stops renting out his hands, and starts owning the company that builds for them. It's risky, and the first 2 years are genuinely brutal. But slowly, Kenny stops being paid for his time. He's paid for the business he built, the staff he hired, and the customers who keep coming back. That is a completely different kind of money. Now let's follow Jonathan. Jonathan does everything Singapore tells him to do. Top of his cohort, into a good JC, then a business degree at a local university. His parents are bursting with pride, and rightly so. It is a genuine, hard-won achievement. But the degree has 2 price tags, and most people only ever see the first. The tuition is around $40,000 for a local degree. That's the one everybody talks about. The hidden price tag is far bigger. At the 4 years of not earning, while Kenny banks a salary the entire time, and the true cost of Jonathan's degree is closer to $140,000 before he earns a single paycheck. It's a real investment. It just isn't a free one. At 23, Jonathan finally graduates and lands a solid corporate job. His starting salary is higher than Kenny's ever was, around $4,500 a month, and it climbs nicely from there. On paper, he is winning comfortably. But notice exactly what Jonathan is. He's an employee. A very well-paid one, with a respected title and a stable income. He rents out his time to a company at a higher hourly rate than Kenny ever charged. But he is still, fundamentally, renting it out. And there's a quiet tax on that kind of success. The graduate lifestyle. The condo, the continental car, the Atos brunches, and the gentle feeling that a degree and a good title have earned him a certain way of living. And it's worth pausing on what each man actually learned in those early years, because it isn't quite what you'd assume. Jonathan learned theory, in a lecture hall, for a one-time certificate. Valuable, but largely fixed, and slowly going out of date the moment he graduated. The world kept moving. His degree didn't. Kenny learned by doing, paid by real customers, correcting real mistakes, every single week. His skills compounded the way money does, and he never once stopped learning, because the market would punish him instantly the moment he did. In a world that changes this fast, the ability to keep learning a paid skill, forever, often beats a single certificate earned at 22 and quietly framed on the wall ever after. Now let's put the 2 timelines side by side, because this is where it gets genuinely interesting. From 18 to 23, Kenny earned, saved, and invested while Jonathan studied and spent. That is 5 years of compounding that Jonathan can never get back. And in the world of money, the early years are the single most powerful ones you will ever have. Remember the brutal maths of the first 100,000. It's the hardest milestone because you do almost all of the saving yourself, with barely any help from the market yet. Kenny got that painful, slow part done half a decade early. Put rough numbers on it. Investing even $1,000 a month from 19 instead of 24, at normal market returns, can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars more by retirement, purely from those 5 extra years. Time is that violent a force. So by the time Jonathan saves his first $100,000 in his late 20s, Kenny's money has already been working for years, quietly snowballing. Jonathan has the bigger salary. Kenny has the bigger head start. And in compounding, time usually beats size. Lay their milestones on a timeline and the head start becomes impossible to miss. Kenny is always years ahead, at every single rung of the ladder. Same finish line, but Kenny reaches every marker 5 to 8 years earlier. And in compounding, being a few years ahead at the start quietly becomes hundreds of thousands of dollars ahead by the end. This is the first crack in the national script. The degree gave Jonathan a higher income. But it also quietly cost him the one thing money can never buy back. Those 5 irreplaceable early years. But the head start is only half the story. The bigger half is about what each man actually owns. Jonathan's income, however high it climbs, has a ceiling. There are only so many hours in a week, and only so much one company will ever pay for them. His salary grows in a straight line. A good, steady line, but a line. Kenny's income has no ceiling, because it isn't really income anymore. It's a business. He can hire a second team, then a third, take on bigger jobs, raise his prices. His earning grows like a curve, not a line. This is the difference between renting out your time and owning an asset. Jonathan rents his time to his employer. Kenny owns a machine that makes money whether his own hands are on the tools that day or not. And the business is itself an asset. One day Kenny can sell it, or simply let it run while he steps back. Jonathan can't sell his job. The moment he stops showing up, the income stops with him, completely. This is the quiet secret of so many Singapore millionaires who never finished university. They didn't out-earn the graduates. They out-owned them. And ownership doesn't just pay more. It compounds in a way a salary never can. Once Kenny's first business runs without him, he can use its profits to buy a second one, or a small commercial unit to house it. So while Jonathan's income climbs one promotion at a time, Kenny's wealth grows on 3 fronts at once. The business profits, the assets those profits buy, and the investments stacked on top. A salary adds. Ownership multiplies. This is why the gap doesn't only exist at 40. It widens every year afterward, as ownership quietly does the one thing a salary simply cannot. It clones itself. And there's a brutal test that exposes the real difference between owning and renting. A recession. When the economy turns, Jonathan the employee is fragile. His entire income hangs on one decision, by one boss. One retrenchment email, and 100% of his salary vanishes overnight, while the mortgage and the lifestyle are still very much due. Kenny the owner is far more resilient. He has dozens of customers, not one single employer. A downturn might cost him some jobs, but never all of them at once. His income bends in a recession. Jonathan's can simply break. This is the hidden fragility buried inside a salary, however large it is. A high income that can be switched off by a single email is not the same thing as security. Ownership, even messy ownership, spreads the risk around. There's a third force quietly pulling the two men apart, and it's the sneakiest one of all. Lifestyle. Jonathan's high salary comes with a high salary lifestyle, and a quiet belief that he has earned it. The nicer flat, the car, the holidays, the constant upgrades. Each one feels deserved. Together, they quietly eat up most of the income the degree won him. Kenny, meanwhile, still drives the same work van. He kept living like the ITE kid he was, long after the business took off. The gap between what he earns and what he spends is enormous, and almost all of it gets invested. So watch what actually happens over 20 years. Jonathan earns more but keeps less. Kenny earns through a business and keeps most of it. The savings rate, not the salary, is what quietly decides who pulls ahead. Put a real number on that gap. If Jonathan lets lifestyle quietly eat $2,000 a month that Kenny invests instead, at normal market returns, that single difference becomes well over $1 million across a working life. Same income, two completely different endings. That is the whole ballgame, hiding in plain sight. Not the salary printed on the contract, but the quiet, boring gap between earning and spending, repeated every single month for 30 years. It's the same lesson from every single story on this channel. It was never about how much came in. It was always about how much you refuse to let back out. So let's jump forward. Both men are 40 now. Same country, same 22 years, 1 degree apart. Where exactly did they each land? Jonathan is genuinely successful. A senior manager, earning maybe $140,000 a year, a nice condo with a healthy mortgage, a comfortable life. His net worth, after the lifestyle, sits somewhere around $1 to $1.5 million. Most of it locked in his home. Kenny has no title, and no convocation photo on the wall. But his business throws off far more than a salary, he owns it outright, and he's spent 20 years investing the difference. His net worth sits closer to 2.5, maybe 3 million. Side by side, the man who never went to university has quietly built more wealth than the straight-A graduate. Not because he was smarter. Not because the degree was worthless. But entirely because of what he did with his years. And here's the part that really stings. Jonathan earned far more salary across those 22 years. He simply kept less of it. The higher earner lost the wealth race to the better keeper. And somewhere around 40, Jonathan has a quiet, uncomfortable realization. On paper he did everything right. Great salary, respected title, the comfortable life. And yet, where did it all actually go? He feels successful, but he doesn't feel wealthy. The honest answer is that a high income, without ownership or a high savings rate, is a treadmill. A beautifully paid treadmill, with a wonderful view, but a treadmill all the same. You can run on it for 30 years and barely move. Head start. Ownership. A low lifestyle, relentlessly invested. Notice that not a single one of those 3 things is printed on a degree, or withheld from the people who don't have one. But hold on. Wealth isn't the only scoreboard, and it would be dishonest to pretend that it is. Jonathan has prestige, a stable paycheck, and a title his parents can say with pride. Kenny has freedom, control of his own time, and no boss, but also stress, real risk, and a job some people quietly look down on. Neither life is obviously the better one. And notice Jonathan's hidden trap. The golden handcuffs. A lifestyle and a mortgage so finely tuned to his salary that he can no longer afford to take the very risks that might have made him truly wealthy. Money is only one measure. The happiest version of each man is the one who found his own enough, on his own road, and stopped measuring his life against the others. In the end, that matters more than any net worth. Now stop. Before anyone screenshots this and tells their kid to quit school, here is the honest other half of the story. Kenny did not win because he skipped university. He won because he started early, became an owner, and stayed disciplined. Take those exact 3 habits and hand them to Jonathan, and Jonathan wins easily, with a higher income on top. Picture a different Jonathan. Same degree, but he invests aggressively from his very first paycheck, keeps his lifestyle low, and buys assets or starts a side business. That Jonathan ends up far richer than Kenny. The degree was never the enemy. And picture a different Kenny. No degree, but also no discipline. He spends everything he earns, never starts the business, never invests a cent. That Kenny ends up far behind Jonathan, and struggling. No degree and no habits is the worst road of all. So the degree was never really the variable that mattered. It was hiding the real ones the entire time. Start early. Own something. Spend little. Invest the rest. Those are the levers. The paper is just a sideshow. The cruel trick of the paper chase is that it makes people believe the degree itself is the finish line. So they get the paper, exhale in relief, and never go on to learn the 4 habits that actually build the wealth. Which means there are absolutely times when the degree is not just worth it. It's non-negotiable. Let's be honest about those too. If you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, an architect, a pharmacist, the degree isn't an advantage you can choose to skip. It is the legal, mandatory entry ticket. No paper, no career. Full stop. And for these paths, the degree's return on investment is enormous and almost certain. A doctor's lifetime earnings dwarf the cost of medical school many times over. Nobody, ever, should drop out of medicine to go and sell aircon. And for plenty of stable, well-paid corporate careers, the degree is simply the cleanest, lowest risk path to a good income. Kenny's road is real, but it's also harder, riskier, and most people who try a business fail. We only met the Kenny who made it. So this was never really degree versus no degree. A degree is a powerful tool for income, especially in gated careers. It simply was never, on its own, a guarantee of wealth. 2 different things, forever confused. There's also something happening to the degree itself that the paper chase hasn't quite caught up to. When a degree was rare, it was a powerful signal. But today, a huge share of every cohort graduates from university. And when almost everyone has the paper, it stops being an edge, and quietly becomes just a flaw. You can see it in graduate underemployment. Degree holders in jobs that never actually needed a degree, carrying the cost and the 4 lost years, but not the premium they were promised. The certificate quietly guaranteed less than the brochure said. None of this makes a degree bad. It just means it is no longer the automatic golden ticket the older generation remembers. It's one ticket now, in a station with many platforms. And here's the genuinely freeing part. In Singapore today, the fog at 18 isn't even final anymore. You can do a diploma, work for a few years, Then top up a degree part-time if your career actually needs it. You can use SkillsFuture to keep reskilling for life. You can start a side business while holding a steady job. The rigid, one-shot choice your parents face is mostly gone. So the enormous pressure we pile onto a 17-year-old to pick the one perfect path, as if a single wrong move ends everything, is mostly a myth. What you do consistently over the next 20 years matters far more than which gate you happen to walk through at 18. And the ground is shifting faster than ever underneath both of them. In a world of automation and AI, the people who thrive aren't the ones holding the most impressive certificate from years ago. They're the ones who keep learning, keep adapting, and own something a machine can't simply replace. Which, quietly, tilts the whole field back toward Kenny's instincts. Learn by doing, stay genuinely useful, own the asset. Those were always the fundamentals. They're just becoming impossible to ignore. And nowhere on earth confuses those two things quite as completely as Singapore. We are a nation built on the paper chase. Streaming, the right JC, the right university, the right title. It made us prosperous, but it also wired a belief deep into us that the certificate itself is the wealth. It shows up at every reunion dinner. The relative with the graduate sunbeams. The one whose boy went to ITE stays quiet, even when that boy is quietly out-earning the entire table. We clap for the certificate, not for the bank balance. So the ITE kid gets quietly looked down on, even when he's the one who owned 3 vans and a shop house by 40. And the graduate gets quietly overpraised, even when he's an overspent employee, one retrenchment away from real trouble. Think of the richest person you actually know in real life. Very often it isn't the one with the most impressive degree. It's the one who owns the business, the shop house, the trade. The millionaire next door rarely frames his certificates. The paper chase isn't wrong to value education. It's wrong to stop there, treating the certificate as the destination, instead of what it really is. Just one possible on-ramp, of several. So what do you actually do with all this, whether you're 18, 40, or raising a kid who's about to choose? If your dream career genuinely needs the degree, then get the degree, wholeheartedly. But the very day you start earning, begin the 4 habits immediately. Do not let graduation become the moment you stop learning about money. If your path doesn't need it, don't let anyone shame you onto it. Start earning early, learn a skill the market actually pays for, and aim relentlessly to own, not just to earn. The road less photographed can still win. And here's the part the whole degree versus no degree shouting match completely misses. You were never actually forced to choose between the two. The richest Singaporeans of all are very often the ones who took Jonathan's degree and Kenny's instincts. The doctor who owns his own clinic. The engineer who starts a firm. The lawyer who invests every single bonus. Credential, plus ownership, plus discipline. So the smartest move was never to pick a side. It's to take whatever genuine value the degree offers for your path, and then bolt on the habits that actually build the wealth. Don't choose between income and ownership. Quietly chase both. And whichever road you're on, the wealth building part is completely identical. Start early. Spend far below your means. Own assets. Invest the gap, automatically, for decades. The road changes. The map to the destination does not. So tell your kids both halves of the truth. Their education matters, deeply. and that it was never, all by itself, the thing that made anyone rich. Now the honest caveats, as always. Kenny and Jonathan are composites, drawn from real Singapore patterns, not two specific people. There are broke business owners and very wealthy salaried graduates everywhere you look. And there's survivorship bias baked into Kenny. For every Kenny whose business worked, others tried and failed, and would have been far safer with a steady graduate salary. The degree road is genuinely lower risk, and that safety has real value. And one more piece of honesty. On average, across everyone, degree holders still do end up wealthier than non-degree holders. Kenny is well above his average. The typical non-graduate earns less, saves less, and never starts a business at all. So this was never a case for skipping university. It's a case for understanding that the degree was never the thing doing the real work, and that its absence was never an excuse. The habits decide it, at every single income level. And none of this is financial advice, or a reason to drop out of anything at all. It's a reframe. A way to finally see what was doing the real work all along, hidden quietly behind the paper. So, back to our two 18-year-olds, standing at the fork in the road. The honest answer to do you need a degree to get rich in Singapore is this. No, you don't. But you do need the habits the degree chase makes almost everyone forget. And those habits are available to absolutely everyone, graduate or not. Jonathan's degree was a good investment. Kenny's head start and ownership were a better one. But neither of them was rich because of a piece of paper, or poor because of the lack of one. The certificate on the wall was never the thing building the wealth. The years, the discipline, and the ownership behind it always were. The paper just quietly took the credit. Kenny's real certificate was the business he built with his own hands. Jonathan's real wealth was waiting in the habits he just never quite got around to. Same island, same years, two roads, and one quiet truth underneath both. So whichever road you took, or your kids will take, stop asking whether you have the right paper. Start asking whether you have the right habits. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you, on whichever road you're on, in the next one. Thanks for watching. If this made building wealth in Singapore a little clearer, give it a like and subscribe to Lukebook so you don't miss the next episode. See you in the next one.